The night was filled with a palpable sense of anticipation. The stage was almost empty, except for the dimming lights, and the audience eagerly awaited the start of the show. Soft jazz beats and background music set the perfect atmosphere, preparing everyone for what was about to unfold. The lights dimmed, and the murmurs of the crowd grew louder. Each spectator seemed to know that when Amy Winehouse appeared, something unique would happen. But no one knew what would follow that night. When the stage finally lit up, the impact was immediate. A familiar silhouette stood at the center, and the crowd erupted in applause. Amy was there, with her unique posture, her vibrant energy, yet still with a hint of vulnerability that instantly connected with everyone. Her unmistakable voice began to fill the air, and the warmth of the room became tangible. No one knew, but what was about to happen would mark this show in everyone's memory forever. The audience was on the brink of being touched in a way they never imagined, for although they were there to appreciate the music, the night was about to transcend the mere performance. Amy, with her attentive gaze, scanned the faces in the crowd as though searching for something, for someone. And then, she did something that left everyone speechless. The microphone came up to her lips, and with her characteristic voice and unique intensity, she interrupted the music. "Hey, you there in the third row," Amy said, pointing to an unlikely fan in the crowd. The audience shuddered, surprised by the gesture. Amy paused the performance and directed all attention to him. The crowd, initially stunned, fell into complete silence as the man looked around, unable to believe that he was being noticed by Amy herself. But he climbed onto the stage, unsure of what would happen next. The moment had just begun, but no. One could have prepared for what would unfold, and in that instant, all eyes were on him. But this wouldn't be just any random fan on stage. He would share something much deeper with the singer. What Amy would do next would be an act of empathy and connection so unexpected that it would touch the hearts of everyone in the room. What happened next? No one was prepared to experience. The fan hesitated as he climbed onto the stage, visibly nervous, his hands trembling, unsure of what to expect. Amy's gaze immediately welcomed him, as if she had been waiting for that moment, as if she knew exactly who he was and what he needed to hear. The audience was in complete silence, following every move, every gesture of Amy, waiting to see what she would do next. With a calm smile, Amy gestured for him to come closer. She held the microphone and looked at him with a soft yet intense gaze, her voice coming through in a way that only she could. "You know what it's like to feel lost, don't you? I can see it in you." Her words came out with an unsettling sincerity. The man, surprised, didn't know how to respond. Amy's vulnerability was palpable, and the connection between the two seemed instant. What started as a random act became an intimate conversation, almost like a public revelation. What began as a simple act of bringing a fan onto the stage was becoming something much deeper, much more personal. He stumbled over his words, trying to explain what he was feeling, but the words wouldn't come out clearly. The audience was paying close attention as if they too were part of the conversation. And then Amy, without hesitation, took the word again. "I've been where you are. I've lost a lot, and I still lose." She smiled gently, and her voice, normally filled with intensity, now sounded like it carried a bittersweet wisdom, but with an embracing tenderness. The energy in the room was shifting. What was once a concert was now becoming something much deeper, something much more personal. The audience felt the connection, not just between the fan and the singer, but between everyone present. "We all go through this," Amy continued, her voice steady. "Times when we feel alone, when we feel like we have no way out, but we're not. We're never alone." Her words weren't just for the fan on stage, but for everyone in the crowd. The emotion started to overflow again, not only from the fan, but from the entire audience. who now felt that they were a part of something truly significant. The audience, still in silence, watched Amy and the fan, witnessing an exchange that went beyond mere entertainment. Amy, with rare calm, began to open up a little more about her own journey. Her vulnerability was in every word she spoke, and the crowd was completely absorbed, as if each of them was taking in the lessons Amy was offering. "I'm not perfect," Amy began, her voice soft yet firm, her gaze filled with meaning. "I've made mistakes. I've fallen, and many times I've felt like you feel right now, at the bottom of the pit, not knowing where to go. But through my life, I've learned that every fall has something to teach us, and it's the pain that gives us the strength to move forward." Her eyes shimmered with a sadness that only someone who has truly walked a difficult path could understand. "I've had to lose a lot to realize that what really matters is not the mistakes, but how we rise. True strength comes from forgiveness of ourselves and others." Those words, spoken with such weight, struck the audience on a visceral level. They weren't just a personal reflection from Amy, they were a lesson for everyone present. Tears started to fall again, not just from the fan on stage, but from the entire crowd, who now felt that they were witnessing something far beyond a performance. Amy's gesture of pulling the fan on stage wasn't just a random interaction. It was a demonstration of empathy that transcended the distance between artist and audience. She wasn't just singing to them anymore. She was sharing a piece of her soul, her pain, and her inner struggles. The crowd no longer saw her as just a performer, but as someone they could relate to, someone who was just as human as they were. What started as a concert had become a life lesson, a reminder that we are all connected in our struggles. Each of us carries a burden, a pain, but together we can ease some of it, and that's what we do here tonight. We support each other, Amy concluded with a sincere smile. The fan, now more composed, turned to face the crowd, now realizing that, in this moment, he wasn't alone. He was part of something bigger, something collective and deeply human. The crowd was still in a state of reverence, but at the same time, a collective sense of liberation was sweeping through the room. Amy, with a calmness that was rare in her performances, began to share more about her own journey. Her vulnerability was in every word that came from her mouth, and the crowd was completely absorbed, as if each person was taking in the lessons Amy was offering. "I'm not perfect," Amy began again, her voice soft but steady, her eyes filled with meaning. "I've made mistakes, fallen down, and many times I felt like you feel right now. But what I've learned is that every fall is a lesson, and every pain is an opportunity to grow. And it's through those moments of darkness that we find our way to the light." Her voice was filled with a wisdom born of experience, and the crowd could feel the weight of her words. "I've lost so much and I still lose, but I don't regret any of it, because every piece of me that's been broken has helped me become who I am now, and every piece of you that's been shattered will help you become who you're meant to be," Amy said, her eyes now wet with emotion. The room was silent, the weight of her words sinking in deeply. Amy didn't just share her music with the audience, she shared her heart, her struggles, and the lessons she'd learned through her pain. What had begun as a concert was now an intimate session of soul-bearing, where everyone, including Amy, was vulnerable. She had shown them that no one is above their struggles, and that even in the darkest times there is light to be found. The fan, now visibly touched, looked at Amy with gratitude. He understood in that moment that his journey wasn't just his own. It was part of a larger collective human experience. And that knowledge, that sense of connection, would stay with him long after the night ended. The fan, who had once been nervous and overwhelmed, now stood before Amy with a newfound sense of calm. The words that Amy shared had unlocked something inside him. As the crowd watched, he took a deep breath and began to speak. his voice no longer shaking but steady and clear. I was going through a really dark time, he started, his eyes welling up with emotion. I lost someone close to me recently, and I felt like I was losing myself too. I didn't know how to move forward. I didn't know if I even wanted to. His voice cracked slightly, but he continued, no longer afraid to share his pain. Amy, with a soft smile, nodded in understanding. It's okay to feel like that, she replied, her voice warm and reassuring. We all go through things that break us. The key is to know that we can always rebuild ourselves piece by piece, and it starts with embracing the pain, not running from it. She placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding him, offering the reassurance that many people spend a lifetime searching for. The fan, now fully present and open, looked out into the crowd, his gaze no longer burdened with the weight of his grief. He spoke again, his voice strong. I've been lost, but standing here with all of you, I feel found. I don't know where this path will take me, but for the first time in a long while, I feel like I can walk it. The audience, deeply moved by his words, erupted into applause, not just for his courage, but for the profound connection that had been made that night. The exchange between Amy and the fan wasn't just about a shared moment of vulnerability. It was a reminder of the human experience, of how we all carry pain and how through connection we can heal. The crowd wasn't just witnessing a performance. They were part of a collective journey of self-discovery and emotional release. What Amy had created wasn't just music. It was a space for healing and understanding, a shared bond that transcended the barriers between artist and audience. As the fan stepped down from the stage, he was different. His shoulders were no longer slumped with grief, and his eyes no longer held the weight of sadness. There was a lightness to him now, a glimmer of hope that wasn't there before. He had been touched by Amy's words, and in return, Amy had been touched by his vulnerability. The connection was mutual, and it left a lasting impact on both of them. The fan had been transformed, but so had everyone in the room. The experience was one that would linger in their hearts for a long time. As the fan returned to his seat, still visibly moved, Amy continued the show, but the atmosphere had irrevocably shifted. What had been a concert was now a moment of collective introspection. Amy, with her characteristic strength and sincerity, looked out at the crowd, her voice carrying a deeper resonance. We're all on this journey together, she said, her words carrying weight. None of us are alone in our struggles. We're all just trying to find our way, and the most powerful thing we can do is to reach out and connect with each other, to lift each other up when we can. The crowd, now filled with a shared understanding, applauded once more. This time, the applause wasn't just for the music or the performance. It was for the connection, for the raw emotion that had been shared, and for the realization that even in their most difficult moments, they weren't alone. Amy's words had opened a door to something much deeper than entertainment. They had opened a door to the heart. Every one of us has a story, Amy continued, her eyes scanning the room. We all carry something, whether it's grief, pain, or uncertainty, but it's how we carry it that matters. And when we share it with each other, we can heal together. The audience, now visibly emotional, responded with a mixture of tears and applause, acknowledging that in that moment something profound had taken place. As the show continued, Amy's performance was no longer just about hitting notes or impressing the audience with her talent. It was about something deeper, something more meaningful, the power of music, words, and shared human experience. The fan who had been pulled on stage was no longer a stranger. He was a reflection of everyone in the room, of their own struggles and triumphs. And Amy, the artist who had always been larger than life, had brought them all together in a way that only true artists can. As the concert came to a close, the lights dimmed once again, but the emotions in the room lingered. The fan, now seated among the audience, was a different person than the one who had entered the venue. He had found a new sense of purpose, a new direction for his life. And though the show was over, the lesson Amy had imparted would stay with him and with everyone present for a long time. Amy, with her unflinching authenticity, had reminded everyone that healing isn't just about time or distance from pain. It's about the connections we make, the moments we share, and the empathy we offer each other. The crowd slowly began to file out of the venue, but no one was in a rush. They had been part of something truly special, something beyond music. They had witnessed a powerful display of humanity, one that would stay with them long after the lights went out. The night would go down in history as one of the most memorable performances of Amy's career, but more than that, it would be remembered as a night when a simple gesture, pulling a fan onto the stage, became a powerful reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the importance of connection. For the fan, for Amy, and for the audience, that night would be a turning point, a moment that forever changed how they saw each other and themselves.